Thank you, Hunter. It's a pleasure. And I can just say you are amazing. I want you in all my events because I've just been watching you. And yeah, that's something talking about events. You need someone to host them properly.
Yeah.
Well, then you have a
Well,
good
let's stay
example already.
connected. I'm a hired gun friend, so I would love to come over. This is not a contract exclusive with Power to
All
Fly.
right.
I've tried, but times is tough. I love them. They love me. But you know what? I would love to come over and have some fun on your platforms. So tell me a bit about, I read a little bit about your bio. Tell me a little bit more. Let's get into it. Like, where did you come from, Jay Mendez? How did you get to events? Did you make a leap from like in person and then you're like, oh, we have all these amazing platforms? Tell me about this journey of getting to this virtual event space that is currently thriving.
Yes. Well, yes and no. There's a post
Yeah,
there's a
fight back. Yeah, let's
post-pandemic
do it. It's fine.
reaction. Yeah, there's a post-pandemic reaction for sure.
Yeah,
There's a post-pandemic reaction for everything, right? It's
yeah.
stretching high. But anyway, so I'm Portuguese, but I left Portugal in 2010. I've been traveling and nomading around the world for many years. And I've always been into events, in-person events. So when COVID came, there was an opportunity. There was a big opportunity for online events. And that's when I started, when I transitioned from in-person to online events. And now I'm transitioning back to hybrid and some in-person, not only online, because during COVID, of course, there was only online options, right? And it was super easy to do online event back then because everyone was at home. So there was no excuse not to be an event or not to be a speaker because you're not traveling, you're not at the office. So yeah, so it was really the fun times of doing online events. So that's what happened. For these last 3 years, I've been doing a lot of online events, like you said, for clients, or I started my own brands in the niches that I liked, because that's the thing, right? And I think we'll talk about that also later, depending on what your effort or on your focus, on what your business or what your interests, you can do a lot of things online and treat this as a marketing tool. So yeah, so I moved into in-person to online through COVID, and now I'm based in Canary Islands, but I'm still kind of nomadic. So yeah, Canary Islands is
Yes. Oh, you're in the Canary Islands.
of course,
Oh, I
European
just talked to my
passport. Where else should
wonderful
I be,
friend
right?
Nacho in the Canary Islands
Yeah,
who's
yeah, yeah.
working there. Do you know
I've
each other? No
Yeah,
way.
we do events
You
together.
do? Oh, I
I'm
love
producing his
him.
next event. In yeah. So
I
yes,
love Nacho. We did a pre-record a couple days ago, and I was traveling, and so I could do it from my other location. And I'm just like, oh, you are one, he's so cool. Two, he's just like, he's so grounded and nice and just relaxed. But then he's just so passionate and knowledgeable about all of his stuff. So clearly, that's
yeah.
my love letter to Nacho. I love him.
I'll share with him. Yeah, speaking very frequently, but definitely the work he's been doing also there it's amazing. But of
Yeah.
course, that's the thing, right? Virtually, that's why I'll never go 100% back to in-person events, because first, I also like to do virtual events, and there's benefits for that, but also it gives you so much freedom and flexibility that it's just difficult to go back to the office, right? It's just something that's not going to happen.
No, and that's a whole, we could talk about that for another hour of just like companies that are trying to drag people in the office. And they're like, no, we're not.
No.
I'll give you 2 days a week, max. 2 days
I
a
give
month.
an example here, a lot of examples, because I'm doing a in-person event here in Canary Islands, and it's a jobs fair for remote work for locals. So it's try to use the community of remote workers, because a lot of remote workers here, and try to help the locals to find remote jobs. And I've been contacted by people like, yeah, my company wants me to go back to London, or my company wants to go back to whatever, and I've just been here for 3 years in this paradise. Why should I go back? No, I want. So this is happening a lot, and companies are going to struggle to keep their talent, because it just need to change their mindset. Anyway, but that's another topic for another conversation. I'm part of an event happening in 2 weeks in Lisbon, the biggest event in the world of remote work, Run Remote, and Power to Fly is also part there. So they're also going to be there. So yeah, so I'm really excited about this topic too, about remote work, but let's not digress.
Yeah. Well, it's all related though, because like virtual events is remote work, right?
Yes.
Like they are simpatico. And I'm curious, and I love that we started off with a little bit of fencing here. I was like, it's thriving. And you're like, well, is it? So there is a push and pull, right?
Yes.
Like you said, during COVID, there were no other options. Everyone's at home. You didn't really have an excuse unless you were like, struggling, which many people were, and there was a lot of stuff going on. But if you were if everything was okay, you could like, yeah, I'll hop on a call for a half an hour. You know, what's that's going to cost me? And a lot of people wanted to because they were looking for connection. They were hoping to do something, right? You know, and now we had this boom, like Power to Fly. We started the virtual event summits during COVID, and we used to do these in-person things. And now we're kind of merging a little bit. We're doing some in-person things. But it is a question for us too. And I would love to hear your take on this. Like, how do we keep virtual events engaging, interesting, so that they don't seem repetitive or just like burnout, right? We've talked a lot about burnout of working. And also I think people are getting burnout on events, like digital events as well.
Even like the Zoom fatigue, right? Although this event is in Zoom, but the Zoom fatigue is more for meetings that is focused not so much on events, the concept, but but it's the same. Yeah, I think that, and you saw that a lot during the COVID era, that there were a lot of online platforms for events like popping out every week. I was doing like demos like 3 or 4 times a week, and it was difficult to keep track. And these guys are for this and they have this, and now these guys pivoted to become a virtual event company. And like big investment, Hopin, for example, got like a gazillion amount of dollars to grow, and then they hire 400 people like right away. And I work with them a lot. Now they had to fire half of those people that they hire, right? So what happened, like there was a big push, of course. There was a lot of the tech companies also firing so many people, well, because that's not everyone now is online as there was before. So for sure, there's an adjustment in the market. There's not enough space for that many online events. And then of course, some companies went to the revenge in-person event, like as soon as they could, are doing like in-person events and doing 2 or 3 editions and compensate for the 2 or 3 years without doing. And the people want that, which is fine. Want it now because it's the reaction, right? Doesn't mean that it's going to last. The same with remote work. Now companies are trying to bring people back to the offices, but that's because it's a reaction. But how it's going to look like in 3 or 4 years, then we'll see, because there's a consequence for that reaction. And that means that they're going to have adjustments. So what I feel that I see is that for sure, as soon as after COVID came, online events became much harder, much difficult to get people online, and engagement was even more important than it was before, because before, well, people just did events and people were just there and didn't care if they were engaged or not, because they'll be there. Now you need to fight for that, and that's quite important. So there's now this reaction that happened, but now you see step by step, I already see the pick up of some companies going back maybe to hybrid models, not completely in person like they were before, but maybe, online was not that bad. The same with remote work, right? Sorry to making always the same comparison, but it's very related. Remote work is not that bad. Maybe we can have a little mix. Maybe this company realizes that they are more productive with online work, and maybe they do a little bit of both. So hybrid is good for events, not so good for remote work, but again, that's another discussion. But for events, you can get a little bit of the best of both worlds, right? And this event happening in April running remote is going to be hybrid, because you also want to be able to have people attending online, but you want to focus a lot in the in-person networking, and that's something that probably going to discuss further. So what I see now is in-person is back to decent levels like it was before COVID. Online is decreased compared with COVID levels, but I think the adjustment, if you look a little bit further, it's going to be different from what it was pre-COVID. There's going to be much more hybrid events and some more online events, because people realize that they are useful and they don't go back to in-person. We also feel that, right? Some companies, just so easy, you get what you want, because maybe what you want is getting leads, or maybe just to get some little bit your company out. And that's enough to do online events. So this adjustment will mean a lot of online events for sure. But like you said, a need to keep engagement up, because otherwise it just be too competitive and people just turn off after some minutes.
Yeah. And like you said earlier, the pendulum is going to swing both ways, right? There's like all online, and then it's like, we need all person. And then we're finding this medium ground. So talk to me about what a hybrid event that is successful looks like to you right now. When you're helping create these things, what is a hybrid event? How does it look? And what is it when it's at its best? And what is it when it's maybe not as great?
I think the key thing, and if there's any message I want to go through about this topic, is an hybrid event. It's 2 events. You need to think it's 2 events. There's no such thing as I will just replicate online. No. It's 2 events. You need an MC or a host on both stages, either in person, either online, even if it's the same main content. So you need to look at your attendees online and see what they need, which is different what in-person attendees need. And then, of course, you can go the extra mile, and there's many examples, there's crazy examples. There's those guys that organize the Tony Robbins events. For example, what they do, they have a very good example, and I think I haven't done it, but I think it sounds really good. So they put the in-person attendees on a room with a screen. The in-person speakers are in a different room. They have no attendees there, and everything they do to cameras. So what happens is that the people online have the same experience that the people in person. And the difference is the people in person, then they can network in person. That's the value added for them, which I think it really represents the difference here. Why in-person event is useful than online. It's not for the content, because you can get either way. You can even have easier extra content like clickable content and a lot of engagement online, but it's for the in-person experience, the in-person networking. For example, this event we're doing in 2 weeks, it's all about people connecting each other and sitting down and talking and making deals and all of that. It's not as easy to do the networking online. There's many tools that are trying to break that code and make a lot of matchmaking, AI doing matchmaking. But I haven't seen like a solution that really make you as happy and successful as you do it in person, if it's also well done in person. But don't forget that if it's an hybrid event, you also have an online tool. So even for your in-person networking, you can use the online tool to set up meetings and check for people and network there, and then complement in person. So there's a hybridization of the networking concept, which I think makes the events really successful if you do that way. But again, content-wise, think it's a different event and take care of attendees. There's some people that even do, for example, you have the speaker coming out of stage and then doing a quick interview just for the online speaker, for the online attendees. So there's a little bit of extra content there. The in-person gets a new speaker on stage, but then the speaker that left just be there a little bit available. So there's things you can do to really maximize, but the message is it's 2 events. So it's almost double work.
Yeah, it's 2 events, it's double work. And I love too, because there's this, it's like you're threading the needle between what are the uniqueness of each platform. And then for engagement, it also sounds like, what's the incentive to bring the people? And those are 2 different conversations, right? It's like, ooh, in-person networking is really, really important for in-person events. But then there's also, you can charge a different ticket price probably for an in-person event that you're doing simultaneously. So finding these different things that are 1, useful, and 2, that bring in revenue for whoever's hosting it, right?
Yes. And I've seen many solutions. I've tried many things. It always depends a little bit on the type of crowd. They're more B2B event, more corporate focus if it's a B2C event. So I think for me, what works well for now, and because I haven't seen like a proper framework of works for this kind of event, is like it's your event. Look at your audience, look at your attendees, and think if you did an online event or if you did an in-person event, and try to make the best out of them. It can be, like I said, having extra content for online, just by having an MC, because what's the advantage of having an MC on an online event and on online part is because if something happens in person, and then they're just, the host in the in-person event is focusing on the attendees in front of him. So if there's a delay, everyone is seeing, but then online, you don't see it, right? You need something to make sure that the people online know that someone is taking care of them and looking at their eyes and taking care of them. So for me, that's super important.
Yeah, I mean, I completely identify. That's what I do here. I can relate to that. I may hand the baton over to a conversation, but a Zoom camera will go out, and then it's just like, okay, I'm going to come in and like, I'll facilitate it. And, we still need that flow and that teamwork, right? That camaraderie to make these events happen. Because yes, as we've been talking about AI and all these things, and there's different platforms, we still need people, and these events are for people.
It's the perfect complement. And of course, then we can go back to what do you want the event for, right? Because there's many events, many platforms that you just the only thing you want is leads, and then you don't need to worry so much about people. Then it's more about content, then you can do a lot of pre-recorded, and that's fine. It's different objectives. If your objective is different, is either to have to focus on the content, or if you're running out, or maybe have a little bit become as a leader in the topic, then the event needs to be different. Then engagement is important. If it's a networking event, you just need your attendees really to be happy by connecting with each other. Then there's many tools. There's the even Hopin, they have the speed networking tool, which I really love it, but it was very difficult for people to use it. There's the virtual tables. There's the tool that has been, I think, more used now, which is the spatial. I don't know if you try that spatial networking, like you have a little avatar, then you move around, and if you get closer to someone, then the cameras will turn on, like you have a little bit of a feeling of movement.
I have played with those.
Yeah, so that for me is the one that's been working better in terms of instantaneous networking. Then of course you have the planned one where you check everyone's profile, and then it's fun. It's more tools, more alternatives coming out, so it's still a very dynamic market in terms of virtual events, so still exciting.
And not to go too down far of a rabbit hole with that sort of stuff, but every company is about to release some sort of augmented reality thing, like Apple's got one, other, there's Oculuses, there's all this stuff, but soon it's going to be accessible, right? And I think a lot of people will have new platforms will kind of come out of those things.
Yeah, so I've been playing. I went to an event recently in Spatial, I think it was the name, Spatial, it was a platform. I just feel that in terms of hardware, we're not there yet. No. So I don't think it's that soon. First, people have to have the technology, and the technology, I heard that now the Oculus is going to have a new version, but it's going to be much more expensive. I think Apple is launching theirs, and I think it's going to cost $3,000. So and also for most people. And all the platforms I've seen, they're okay with small amount of people. When it becomes too crowded, it becomes a little bit crazy. I've been to an event that it was even super 3D and they completely crashed. They had to move to 2D because they just can't hold it. So I don't feel we are there yet. I love the experience, and I'm sure we are getting there. But I don't think we need to be. I don't think companies should be investing in events like super 3D yet. These big ones that you can do small things, you can do small networking gatherings, 20, 30 people. That's already possible, and that's fun. But for events like you can have 500, 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 people, no, I don't think you have a great benefit from what you pay for it. Yeah, you pay a lot. That's the thing, right? That's a big difference. If it's just a little bit of money, no, it's a big hike in terms of cost. So I don't think you get
right. They're luxury items, and if the point is to get as many people as possible, how can they get there if they don't have the ticket to the flight? That's just impossible, right? No. So what are some of the platforms that, of course, depends on the event, right? So we got, there could be events like this open to the public. There could be internal events, right? There could be networking events. What are these? Can you rattle off some more? You mentioned some other platforms that you think are really special and effective that work well in these different fields, in these different markets.
I think so. I said something about networking before in terms of trying to break the code of the best way to matchmake and everything. And I think Grip has been around for a while, and they started their first big client was the big ITB fair in Berlin, which is a big tourism fair. I think as far as I've seen, they have the most user-friendly pure networking matchmaking tool. Everything else is kind of standard like the other tools, but in terms of matchmaking, they do really well. It's called Grip. The other tools that do matchmaking, I think there are more platforms are focusing on that. Hopin, for example, although I use a lot Hopin matchmaking, it's not the strength, and they kept delaying it. I was always talking with the engineers and everything and the marketing, and for some reason they didn't think it was that important. So it's good. The Hopin is great in other with the virtual booths are quite good, and they're very stable platform, but not great for networking. So again, if network is not your focus, maybe not there. Then you have a decent platform that started decent, and now they are really good because they got a lot of investment 1 year ago, which is Airmeet, and that's my go-to platform now for most of my events, even if it's a simple webinar or if it's a full-fledged conference with 2 or 3 stages. They are based in India, but they've been very stable now, because beginning there were a little bit of troubles and I was not using that so much. But yeah, Airmeet is probably now the more overall platform. They have decent networking. They have virtual tables. They have the spatial area. They have speed networking. So they have all the tools for networking, and then they have the normal stage stuff with some interactive. They integrate to some other platforms, so they do most of what you want to do, and they are quite good in terms of instantaneous networking. Not so much the one that is matchmaking. That's on Grip. So that's more for fairs or for really heavy salesy business networking. Then Grip is better. But if it's more like more personal networking, more interactive and engaging, then Airmeet will probably be a better tool. So yeah, those 2, and then and Hopin for bigger events could be my go-to solutions.
I love hearing that. So what I was like creating, I'm one of those people that has 1,000 tabs open on their web browser, and you just gave me 1,005 now. So I just added 5 to check out after we chat. Someone asked, picking these platforms, we got this question from the chat. We're talking about picking the right platform. Different platforms have different strengths, weaknesses. Someone asked, what are some common mistakes that event organizers make when selecting a platform or planning their event, and how can these mistakes be avoided?
Well, to avoid choosing a platform, a good advice that's a good way of avoiding those mistakes. But I think for me, it's there's two problems when you're choosing platforms, and one of course is the objective of your platform. Like I said, if it's networking, because there are platforms that are built like for example, Hey Summit, they are built just for pre-recorded content, for lead generator. It's all autopilot. So I think for me, first you need to decide what you want to do, and then before you choose a platform. And then careful also with the pricing model, because there's a gazillion pricing models. If it's per registration, if it's per live user, because some platforms, as soon as someone registers for event, they'll leave the email. And then if it's a free event that you want to have a big mailing list, then you pay more. Others are more only if you watch the event live, then you pay for that. So careful with the pricing, case all the features. If you are starting out, don't go for all bells and whistles for all the platform that they always add on those features. They make it cheap in beginning, and then they have all those features up. But pricing model and the extra features is you need to be careful in terms of price, in terms of costs, and choosing again the platform for what you need. So it's like networking, branding, sales. Some companies just want to promote. Maybe they have a new product, they want to launch something. They use the event to launch that, which is great. So the event is not to make money directly, but then you have something afterwards that you are promoting or selling. So my first event, why I created my first event? Because I wanted to meet a lot of experts, and I wanted to connect, because I wanted to move fast in a new industry, because I was moving to hospitality industry. And I organized a Hotel Summit, the first, and I after that event, I had on my contact list like 30 world experts about the topics. That was my objective. I did make money with it, but it was not the first goal. So even with that, you get benefits.
I love that. Well, what I'm hearing, what I'm extrapolating there is know your intentions for creating the event and do your research on what platforms might best suit your event.
Pricing, and careful with the pricing. If you're doing a big event, if it's a small event, doesn't really matter. But if you're a big event, it makes a big difference.
Well, that's a great question too, is how many people are needed to create a successful event and how much time to plan the event? I'm sure that varies wildly on how many speakers you're going to have and what kind of event it is. But would you say there's like a baseline amount of people and support and time dedicated for preparation?
So I have the rule of three, which is if you go look around 30 speakers, 2 or 3 days, if you are 3 people, 3 months. That's my reference point. If you are a bigger team, you can work more, but around those 3 months, with a couple of months to prepare, and then the third month to hardly to promote, and then we have the event. Around 30 speakers. That should be enough.
I love that. I love that rule of threes. Also, a great rule of threes in comedy. If you do something 3 times, it's funny again.
All right.
Yep. So you keep that in your back pocket. Rule of threes in comedy always works because it's funny, then it's not so funny, and then it's funny again.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, there you go.
Thanks
I
for
offer it up, Jay Mendez. I offer it up.
Full
So
of surprises.
so what do you think are some of the best networking tools for engagement? We talked about different things have different purposes. Which one is the best for engagement, would you say?
For engagement, I of course you have to have a good host, but I think it has to do with, and I see that coming more and more, you actually have to go extra mile and creating games and creating giveaways and creating a lot of things to keep people really on track. Of course, if you have an amazing content, or if it's like a very interactive speaker, it's easy. Just let it go. But if you have an event with 30 speakers, not everyone is going to be super engaging. I love that. So you see more like there's gamification on events. So for example, I meet the example, but Hopin was also planning to do that. So if you comment here and there, if you go to virtual booth, you get X amount of points, then you can exchange the points for some benefit from the event, or you just get a prize at the end. So you have to go to these extra things for people to be engaged. Unfortunately, it's just not enough just to have good content, although in some particular speakers, then sometimes it's enough. So yeah, games, gamificate the event, having games, which like things that you do interactive with your attendees, and then giveaways. That's probably another tool that I use.
Those are great. Sometimes I bring my puppy onto camera. That really gets people engaged very quickly.
But then it's what I said in the beginning, a proper host. With a good host, it's all done. It's super
I know
easy.
my dog is the best host. Power to Fly, contract the dog. It's really, he's the best. He loves the camera. He loves attention.
I'm sure
Jay Mendez, this has been so fantastic. We're out of time. Is there anything else before? Of course, I want to know how we can stay connected to you and keep the conversation going. Is there any last bits of advice? One thing you want people to take away from this if they're going to go start an event, summit, or to improve their current situation with these events?
Yeah. So what I would like to share here is like, look at an event as a marketing tool, and probably one of the best marketing tools you can have with return on your investment. So if you are on the fence about doing an event, then go for it, because you're not going to regret it. The way it can be done nowadays and return you have in terms of visibility, in terms of all the potential sales, networking, there's so many reasons to why to do an event, and it's so easy to do nowadays with so many tools, so many people helping out. So there's no reason why you don't add to your tool of your marketing strategy an event, at least an online event. There's no reason. Even if you are a freelancer and you want to start on your niche and to go strong, you do a summit. There's summits about everything nowadays. Any kind of niches, there's a summit. So what are you waiting for?
Go for it. We do 1, sometimes 2 a month here at Power to Fly. And guess what, friends? That is the end of this summit. Jay Mendez. Oh, please.
One last thing, you need to go to Events Anonymous, right? I haven't done an event for the last 2 weeks, like, because it gets addictive. That's true.
It does. Events Anonymous. I need to hit a few meetings if you catch my drift. So, Jay Mendez, thank you so much for being here. How do we stay connected with you?
Yeah, just No Footprint Events. You can go to my website, or you can just find me on LinkedIn, Jay Mendez, and I'm always happy to answer there. Very active on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks for making the time today. Please come back. I would love to talk to you all day, every day.
Pleasure. Maybe we'll meet in another circumstance. We'll see.
I hope so. Yeah. Take care. Enjoy the Canary Islands. Soak up some sun for me, will you?
That's super easy. Huh? No worries.
All right. I'm going to Power to Fly. We'll finish our bromance later. Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Take care, Jay Mendez. Good to see you.